I won't go through all of these. There's like 8 more, but we can do. Do you see General Counsel Ryan Germany? That was on that same call. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Is that McEnany?
Maybe. The one specific I remember referencing was, I don't agree with the Dominion track. I specifically referenced waving him off of the Dominion theory earlier in my testimony. Question, are you saying you think he still continued to tweet after that you waved him off of it? Her answer was yes. And then Donald Trump, between mid-November and January 5th, 2021, Trump tweeted or retweeted conspiracy theories about Dominion nearly 36 times. These were the ones that were coming from Sidney Powell and Giuliani inside of his the lawyer people that he'd found. Trump campaign senior advisor Jason Miller. The international allegations for Dominion were not valid. Question. Okay, did anybody communicate that to the president? Answer. I know that was communicated. I know I communicated it. President Trump afterwards, you have Dominion, which is very, very suspect to start off with. Nobody knows the ownership. People say the votes are counted in foreign countries, and much worse. Donald Trump does this, people say a lot. And then I'll do this last one by Attorney General Barr in November 23rd. I specifically raised the Dominion voting machines, which I found to be one of the most disturbing allegations. Disturbing in the sense that I saw absolutely zero basis for the allegations. I told him that it was crazy stuff and they were wasting their time on that, and it was doing great disservice to the country. Donald Trump 3 days later, those machines are fixed, they're rigged, you can press Trump, and the vote goes to Biden. All you have to do is play with a chip, and they played with a chip, especially in Wayne County and Detroit. There are like 6 or 7 more of these, but basically just that like people would tell him like these things are not happening, they're not true. It's his attorney general. It's like investigators in the DOJ. Like this is his lead like investigative body, and nobody is like affirming any of these things. All of these things are coming from either social media or from like Powell or Giuliani, basically.
Trump media.
I mean, dude, that is by far the best section you've shown so far in terms of him showing intent. Like very clearly, his people are saying like this is not true, and then he's going straight
into the thing afterwards.
A few days later, saying the exact opposite.
Sure.
I mean, the biggest thing is you have like 17 different people that are hired by him or members of his cabinet, like members of government, who are like explicitly saying this guy's retarded, and then you have the quote of him being retarded, basically, right?
Sure.
And that's like. They're like he's retarded, and I told him he's being retarded, and I told him he's wrong, and he knows he's wrong, and then he's like, actually, I'm right, guy. Like,
yeah,
like,
basically.
So dead to rights, like 20. This is like easily the most powerful section of this entire thing. I agree.
By far the.
If this was like some poor woman's rape allegation, we already would have cut them off mid-sentence. It would be over.
Yeah, but we gotta be fair though. He sees himself as a fighter, and he's coming at this unreasonably from every angle. He's like looking under every stone, just like a lawyer.
Okay. Underneath the table, I've got this little quote, I guess, or thing I've written. A district court declared that Trump and Eastman knowingly filed bogus court cases in order to further fight over the certification of the election and to obstruct the January 6th committee from obtaining evidence of any conspiracy. So I've linked a court case here. You can, if you want, you can click through it and read it, but I've quoted the section that's relevant here. And this is I believe this is the judge writing about this court case in the ruling. There are 4 documents, however, in which Dr. Eastman and other attorneys suggest that, irrespective of the merits, the primary goal of filing is to delay or otherwise disrupt the January 6th vote. In one email, for example, President Trump's attorneys state that, quote, merely having this case pending in the Supreme Court, not ruled on, might be enough to delay consideration of Georgia, end quote. This email, read in context with other documents in this review, make clear that President Trump filed certain lawsuits not to obtain legal relief, but to disrupt or delay the January 6th congressional proceedings through the courts. The court finds that these 4 documents are sufficiently related to and in furtherance of the obstruction crime. Accordingly, the crime fraud exception applies, and the court orders Dr. Eastman to disclose the 4 documents. And then on December 4th, 2020, President Trump and his attorneys alleged in a Georgia state court action that Fulton County improperly counted a number of votes, including 10,315 deceased people, 2,560 felons, and 2,423 unregistered voters. President Trump and his attorneys then decided to contest the state court proceeding in federal court and discussed incorporating by reference the voter fraud numbers alleged in the state petition. So what he's saying here is that Trump's lawyers were saying, okay, the state court didn't give us what we wanted, so now we're going to appeal this. We're going to try this in federal court next, okay, is what they're saying. And they're saying we're going to use the same complaint that we filed in the state to go to the federal court. On December 30th, 2020, Dr. Eastman relayed concerns from President Trump's team about including specific numbers in the paragraph dealing with felons, deceased, moved, etc. The attorneys continued to discuss the president's resistance to signing when specific numbers were included, as Dr. Eastman explained the next day. Eastman is one of Trump's lawyers. Quote, although the president signed a verification for the state court filing back on December 1st, he has since been made aware that some of the allegations and evidence proffered by the experts has been inaccurate. For him to sign a new verification with that knowledge and incorporation by reference would not be accurate, end quote. President Trump and his attorneys ultimately filed the complaint with the same inaccurate numbers without rectifying, clarifying, or otherwise changing them. President Trump, moreover, signed a verification swearing under oath that the incorporated inaccurate numbers, quote, are true and correct, end quote, or, quote, believed to be true and correct, end quote, to the best of his knowledge and belief. The emails show that President Trump knew that the specific numbers of voter fraud were wrong, but continued to tout those numbers both in court and to the public. The court finds that these emails are sufficiently related to and in furtherance of a conspiracy to defraud the United States. Does that make sense, what I just read?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Go.
So right at the beginning, it reads, there are 4 documents, however, in which Dr. Eastman and the other attorneys suggest that. And they have a line here that says, irrespective of the merits. Is that implying there might be merit to the case? Like, what is that? Or are they saying that regardless of what's in it or not?
What they're saying is that there are emails from Dr. Eastman saying that regardless of whether they've got a good voter fraud case or not, all they're trying to do is delay or disrupt the January 6th vote. It's saying that's showing there are 4 documents in which Eastman and the other attorneys suggest that regardless of whether they've got a good case or not, the primary goal of their filing is to delay or otherwise disrupt the January 6th
vote. It's not
vote.
actually to find anything, Tom. They're just trying
no, I understand that. I'm just this line, irrespective of the merits. I mean, merits usually implies like there's some kind of I don't know, like some validity, right?
Sure. It would be like, you know how when we were hanging out and you beat the shit out of me 15 times one of the nights because I was Cuban, you found out that I had some Hispanic in me and you were like, fuck, you want to beat the shit out of you, right? Imagine if you and I have like a big debate coming up because you're a professional debater now. And then like the day before the debate, I say like, listen, Tom, that dude beat me up just because I was Cuban, by the way. Even though that statement might be true, there might be merits to it. Obviously, I'm just bringing it up to fuck with our debate the next day, right? So just regardless of the merits, the primary goal of me bringing that up is just to fuck with our debate. And that's what the judge is saying here. Regardless of the merits of if this is true or not, irrespective, he's not saying it is true, but even if it was true, the only reason, the primary goal of filing this is to delay or disrupt the J6 vote, the certification of the presidency, is what he's saying.
I feel like in that case, maybe the line with merits could have been in place later in this kind of little blurb. And the reason I say that is just because merit, like imagine I'm like a conservative guy or somebody who disagrees with you is reading this. When I see the word merit, the second I see that, I'm going to be thinking, wait, there's merit, right? There is like some validity to this.
Okay.
Like obviously,
I'll add on to that
to any extent, regardless.
Yeah, if you make a video, you got to normify some of this.
Sure. I got it. That's good. That's fine. I will. And also, yes,
like,
if there's stuff like that is like,
second,
yeah, confusing. That's good to bring up. Okay, yeah.
Well,
the second you hear that,
the
second I hear that, I'm going to be thinking like, oh wait, merit. There's merit, and then I might like stop watching. So I feel like what you have to do is like, because obviously this is like this is from the court documents, and they're just phrasing it after. Like this is at the end, I assume, of like compiling all the evidence, right? Is where this is.
Sure.
But in like a video format, when you present this, you're gonna have to like be like, we're going to do an investigation to figure out what happened, and then you're not going to want to give a conclusion until after, but this will read as like preloading it. And when you have like merit in there, I think once again that kind of like triggers people's like, oh wait, merit, what the fuck?
Sure. Okay.
But I think you also have to keep the quotes themselves accurate so that you're not like cutting pieces out and putting them all over the place if this is how it's written in the document. But you could just like explain, irrespective of the merit, like just explain what you just told us, that what he's saying is that regardless of if they have a good case on this thing or not, the point is the primary goal is to delay or otherwise disrupt the J6 vote. So yeah.
Sure. Okay. On the bottom section, we don't have to go through these, but basically just these are all the people who told Donald Trump that he lost. Some people say they're rhinos or whatever, but like there were a lot of people that were directors of like
they're rhinos.
Yeah, that's what they end up calling them.
Get a name only.
You got like Trump's national field director, his director of National Counterterrorism Center. William Barr was his attorney general. Jeffrey Rosen was another attorney general, acting attorney, deputy attorney general. Like people from Fox News, his campaign advisors. Mike Pence, his vice president. You got Raffensperger and Kemp, Secretary of State, Governor of Georgia. You've got the the group of the people that went through that court thing earlier. The 8 different I think it was 4 federal judges, 2 former senators, a lawyer, and somebody who worked in Capitol Hill for 20 years. All these people are Republicans. 11 of the judges who ruled against Trump's cases were Trump federal judiciary appointments. Ivanka and Kushner, have pushed against like a lot of this election stuff. Alex Cannon, Trump's campaign lawyer, said he told advisors there was no election fraud. Kellyanne Conway wrote in her published memoir that she told Trump that he lost. there's tons of people.
One credible person that did side with him?
Not that I'm aware of. Some people have kind of no. That the election was stolen. I'm not aware of any like prominent lawmakers or media people that are on that still. But I imagine a lot of them might also be afraid of the defamation stuff too, if they're just lying about shit. If you want, okay, and then after, I don't know why I said everyone. Okay, underneath like all this, just a list of random people. So this is specifically related to that black box of stuff in Georgia. So I'll read this and then we'll just click through and watch these quickly. Rudy Giuliani tweeted a heavily cut up video propagated by OAN that claimed boxes of illegitimately filled ballot boxes were being counted after election officials told counters to go home. Election officials investigated and released additional video and explanations showing that these claims were fabricated. Giuliani would later admit to lying in court about this case, claiming that it was his First Amendment right to lie. He would lose that case to the tune of $148 million, and then he would have a bankruptcy case dismissed that he filed to avoid paying this debt due to lying about his assets.
Yo, that's crazy.
That's how you play.
I want to see that. I want to see that
Where
quote
does it say
about
he lies, dude. That's crazy.
Sure. So here's
lying about the First Amendment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Here's this real quick. This is the. Let me know when you guys have this. We're gonna do the playback speed 1.5, the 136 video. Giuliani, you can see I'm retweeting this, but you can see the origination of this Georgia claim. Let me know when you guys are ready.
I like how these tweets are still up.
Yeah. 3, you guys all ready?
All set.
Okay.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so I think this is supposed to be showing them, you see it under the table, I think in the top right, they're like pulling out the ballot boxes and they're counting again. You can see them pulling the ballot box. Yes, yeah, this is a really, really big, this was one of the central like voter fraud claims, one of the biggest ones that was claimed. I think Ruby Freeman is going to be in the top left. I think she's one of the people counting that they say she ran the votes over and over and over again. You can watching this video, and then we don't have to watch much more. It's just that's basically what this video is.
Was OAN ever sued over this or no?
I think Dominion has pending litigation against them. I think. So the original tweet coming out here is, watch video footage from Georgia shows suitcases filled with ballots pulled from under a table after supervisors told poll workers to leave room, and 4 people stayed behind to keep counting votes. And then Giuliani quote tweets it, and he quotes the text, and he adds that as well.
Your voice.
If you want, here is the... Now, keep in mind that the video footage that we're about to watch, not only has Giuliani and Trump's entire campaign seen this video footage, Trump himself has also been made aware of this video footage. None of this is like top secret. Then look at the date of this video. The date of this video is December 5th, 2020, okay? So a full month before January 6th, December 5th, 2020, okay? Let me know when you guys have it at 0 minutes, and you've got it at 1.5, and then we'll play through this video.
Ready.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Your voice, your vote. And for the third time, counties across Georgia have certified votes from November's presidential election.
The Secretary of State is expected to actually certify the statewide results today as well. The outcome not expected to change, but legal challenges are still underway, including one involving that video right there from State Farm Arena. President Trump's lawyer, other supporters too, call it the smoking gun proving election fraud. Channel 2 investigative reporter Justin Gray spent the day with Georgia elections officials, as we saw in that video. And Justin, we saw it. You went frame by frame to uncover and then really show everyone what happened.
Yeah, George, we spent a lot of time today with the state's lead investigator. We looked at that video for hours, going through it very carefully, looking not just at that short clip that Rudy Giuliani shared, but also the critical hours before it and after it, going through the chain of custody for those ballots in question the entire time. You went through hours.
Yes.
We went frame by frame with state election investigators. They've already spent hours analyzing this video. Looking at the election night surveillance tape that President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, calls a smoking gun. Quote, suitcases pulled from under a table.
We can show exactly when they were placed under there.
So these were not mystery ballots that came from a mystery location?
No.
They were right there in the room.
Yes.
People watched them placed in those boxes.
Yes.
This is the short section of the video the Trump team has shared. It's not suitcases being pulled from under that table, but official sealed ballot containers. If we go back in the video to hours before, you can see that table being brought into the room at 8:22 a.m. Nothing underneath, no hidden suitcases. Then we can see at 10 p.m. with the room full of people, including official monitors and the media, as ballots that have been opened but not counted are placed in the boxes, sealed up and stored under the table. The reason? Employees thought they were done for the night.
They were planning on going home.
Yes. As you can tell by the fact that they're sealing everything up and preparing to leave. Here's where there was confusion. Media and observers left as employees packed up. But this phone call changed that. Fulton's election director called the supervisor here to say, keep working, keep counting. After the Secretary of State's office called him to say you shouldn't stop this early. That's when employees pulled these containers of ballots back out, the so-called smoking gun video, and went back to work. These are the same ballots official monitors watched them put away.
No magical appearing ballots. These are ballots that were processed in front of the monitors, put in the boxes in front of the monitors, and placed there in front of the monitors.
So what about that gap? Well, this is what happened during the roughly an hour before an official state observer returned. Employees scanned ballots.
These are just typical everyday election workers who are just doing their jobs. I mean, it's not like this is an Ocean's 11 level scheme that's put together in the middle of the night.
Now, there was about an hour there before the state official monitor got back. But if you watch that video, you see what they're doing. They're scanning those ballots. The state election lead investigator looked at all that video, hours of it, says she sees no evidence whatsoever of any wrongdoing. Reporting live at the state capitol, Justin Gray, Channel 2 Action News.
Okay, so that's that. You can click if you don't trust my legal interpretation, you can click the first link says Giuliani would admit to lying. And that's basically it's a news article written about Giuliani claiming the First Amendment lets him lie about this particular case. But if you want, then the next thing after...
Where does he say that?
Yeah. So in the next thing after where it says claiming, can you click that? And it'll open up a court pretrial thing. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be right back. I'm going to get some water. I'll
you
still be
piece of
able to
shit.
hear you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is filed by Giuliani in the top left. You can see this is the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. So this is a federal court, first stage. You can see that the plaintiff is Ruby Freeman. So she's suing the defendant, Rudolph W. Giuliani. This is that case. And then this is a pretrial motion, okay? So whereas defendant Giuliani believes that he has legal defenses to this complaint, and whereas defendant Giuliani is desirous to avoid unnecessary expenses in litigating what he believes to be an unnecessary dispute. So basically he's saying that, like, I think I can defend myself against this. We don't need to go to court. This is silly. The next thing is, it is hereby stipulated solely for the purposes of this litigation, the defendant Giuliani, for the purpose of deciding this case on the legal issues and recognizing that all other defendants previously identified in the complaint have resolved their claims with all plaintiffs and without admitting to the truth of the allegations, hereby does not contest the following allegations. So all he's saying up here is that I'm not admitting to anything in this thing that could be used in any other case, and all the other plaintiffs and everybody else has settled their shit. So he's not making it so wide that it would cover other cases. This is all like probably standard boilerplate stuff that would show up in any complaint or pretrial thing. So there's 4 parts in here. 1, defendant Giuliani concedes, solely for the purposes of this litigation before this court on appeal, that defendant Giuliani made the statements of and concerning plaintiffs, which include all the statements detailed in the plaintiff's amended complaint, and he does not dispute for purposes of this litigation that the statements carry meaning that is defamatory per se. So what he's saying here is that they filed a complaint saying that I committed essentially defamatory per se. Defamatory per se means you've done defamation, and it's of such a character demeaning quality you don't have to prove damages to win a suit for it. But so he's saying that, yes, I did say all the defamatory statements that were in that complaint. That's part 1. Part 2 is that defendant Giuliani, for the purposes of this litigation only, published those statements to third parties. As part of a defamation suit, you've got to prove that the other person published the statements. They can't say them privately. So that's part 2. And then 3 is that defendant Giuliani, for the purposes of this litigation only, does not contest that to the extent the statements were statements of fact and otherwise actionable, such actionable statements were false. So he doesn't contest that these were false statements. This stipulation does not affect Giuliani's ability to seek set-off, offset, or settlement credit, or his argument that his statements are constitutionally protected statements or opinions, or any applicable statute of limitations, or that Giuliani's statements, in fact, cause plaintiffs any damages, and the amount of any alleged damages which Giuliani's statements may have caused, or any other legal defense not expressly waived by this stipulation. So just because he's admitting this doesn't mean that he still can't defend himself in court, because number 4, defendant Giuliani does not contest solely for the purposes of this litigation, including on any appeal in this litigation, the factual elements of liability subject to any retained affirmative defenses not expressly waived herein regarding plaintiff's claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress and other related tort claims. So he's not saying that, fine, okay, maybe I did cause emotional distress, maybe there's other civil things you can sue me over. This stipulation does not affect Giuliani's ability to seek set-off, offset, or settlement credit, or his argument that his statements are constitutionally protected statements or opinions or any applicable statute of limitations, or that Giuliani's conduct in fact caused plaintiffs any damages, and the amount of any alleged damages Giuliani's conduct may have caused, or any other legal defenses not expressly waived by the stipulation. So basically, and again, it's a lot of kind of like legalese, but basically what he's saying here is that, listen, everything you said in your complaint was true, and I did lie, and it even was defamatory per se. However, I have a constitutional right to say these particular things. And then if you don't trust, again, my interpretation of the document, you can either Google a ton of other articles or this article that I linked above, Giuliani claims the First Amendment lets him lie, that basically summarizes this if you don't believe my interpretation of it. But yeah, that's essentially...
I can see why he lost.
Yeah.
So where is it him saying he lied? Can we read this line again? Because this legalese talk.
Yeah. Where does it say that he intentionally lied?
Well, all lies are intentional. For a court, you wouldn't say somebody lied if they just got something wrong.
Right.
But hold on, let me click this again.
This call's been going on so long, it's turned nighttime behind Warren, dude.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Hold on. So point 3 on this motion is the defendant Giuliani does not contest that. He doesn't contest. He's not arguing. Right. To the extent the statements were statements of fact and otherwise actionable. So he doesn't contest that he made statements of fact, and they might have been actionable statements. You might have been able to take action against them.
Does actionable mean like you can sue him?
I think that actionable here means either that you can sue him or that they're causing damage to the plaintiff. Does not contest that to the extent the statements were statements of fact and otherwise actionable, or just that they're statements that like people are hearing that can cause things to happen. I think might be is what my interpretation would be here.
Okay.
But that such actionable factual statements were false. So the defendant Giuliani does not contest that such actionable factual statements were false. That's the part 3
He's
of
this.
this.
He's not even arguing that he believed it at any point. That's what that is saying.
You got
correct.
Me. Yeah, that reads plain enough when you cut out all the bullshit.
Sure, yeah.
Out of curiosity, I looked up the OAN thing. They did settle a lawsuit in 2023 with a former executive of Dominion, and that executive's name is Eric Coomer, Coomer.
Nice.
I'm not making it up, but that's a real thing. But I'm gonna link the article here just in case. But yeah, it's pretty based.
Okay.
That's what I gotta say. But yeah, they did settle.
Gotcha. So Giuliani would go on to lose this case, and I think he lost it was $148 million settlement to Ruby Freeman, who was probably one of the largest like voter fraud. Ruby Freeman and Dominion are probably the two most brought up like voter fraud things of that past election. And the Ruby Freeman thing was just a lie invented by Giuliani, as we've seen, and the Dominion thing was just a lie invented by Sidney Powell that was spread by Fox News.
And a lot of the Dominion lie has to do with there was some rigged election in Venezuela or some shit.
It's there. I can't give you like a good. It was just like basically claims saying that like these machines are like rigging the vote somehow. There is no good there's no factual reason to believe any of this. There's no good. Yeah.
They're just saying Hugo Chavez because.
Venezuela
because buzzword,
basically, yeah.
Clickbait.
Okay. Whew. All right. Moving through the next part. Okay. All right. As a quick civics thing, in the United States of America, citizens don't technically vote for president. The states vote for president, and the way that the states do it is they assign electors to a presidential candidate. Now, the way that all 50 states have decided to run their elections is they have their citizens all vote in a popular election, and then based upon who the majority of the citizens vote for, they assign their electors to vote for that presidential candidate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a little weird, and it's kind of not. We don't usually think of elections that way. We think of every individual voting, but this is how the voting system is constitutionally structured in the United States.
I get it.
Yeah. Okay. Kenneth Chesbro was an attorney from Wisconsin who began working with the Trump campaign at the behest of Jim Troupis, another lawyer for Trump's campaign, around November 9th, 2020. He was responsible for the creation of the first few memos outlining a potential scheme that Trump could utilize to challenge the certification of the electoral vote on January 6th. Chesbro believed that if people gathered and falsely attested to being legitimate state electors and transmitted said votes on December 14th to Congress and NARA, that it would keep Trump's chances alive to win the election should a court rule in his favor from between December 14th and the date that all electors in all 50 states certify their votes for president, and January 6th, the date that Congress was scheduled to count the electorate slates. Ultimately, there were 7 different states whom were selected to send false slates of electors out from. Here are those states and the accompanying state laws that dictate how slates of electors were legally supposed to be chosen. And we don't have to go through all these, but these are just the 7 states of, like, this is what the law states, how you do your elector shit. And then part 2 of all of these is, like, you can click. Like, again, none of this is contested. In all 7 of these states, if you click on part 2, you can click the false slates of electors, and you can see the paperwork that was sent in. All of this paperwork that says that, we are the electors chosen by the state that was sent into NARA and to Congress are false. These people were not voted for by the state. They weren't appointed or duly granted the authority or ascertainment or whatever by the legislature. The governor didn't sign off on it. All of this is a lie for all of these slates of electors. Yeah.
These were all swing states in the election?
These were the 7 that Trump thought he could fight over. It was Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and New Mexico.
It would have been funny if you sent the false electors to, like, California, and they're like, yep, we vote Republican.
Yeah.
So the electors, who were the electors traditionally chosen by?
So what I believe that the process that'll happen is actually, well, you can actually just read it because I've linked the laws in each of these. So say for I'll read out for Michigan, the electors of president and vice president shall convene in the Senate chamber on the capital of the state at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the first Tuesday after the second Wednesday in December following the electors' election at any time before receiving the certificate of ascertainment of appointment of. So the electors are basically just the state legislature says, here is our 7 Republican electors and here's our 7 Democrat electors. And then when the state votes, who you're actually voting for are each of these electors. You're voting for them to send their vote to Congress for who's going to be the president, basically. So when you vote in Florida, you're not actually voting for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. You're actually voting for the electors of the legislature that will vote for Donald Trump.
So the elector is chosen by the state legislature?
Correct. Ultimately, yes.
Clear. Okay.
Yes.
So my question is, how the fuck, like, how does this process work? Like, were these false guys just going to show up and be like, I'm the guy, actually? Like, how's that going to work?
So basically
pretty much, Tom.
Yeah, so
TF2 spies, man. TF2.
Yeah, so basically what they did was they just wanted to like basically sign a piece of paper and mail it to Congress pretending that they were the actual people that were chosen. I think I have this later on.
So basically he wanted to do mail-in ballots and commit fraud.
I mean, yeah, you could say that. Was it Michigan? Fuck, what am I thinking of? Hold on.
Nick, I saw you taking this selfie earlier. What were you doing there, buddy? Who's that for?
Snap streaks.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I saw you like looking around. After you took it, you were like, anyone see me do that? You know you're on live stream, right? We can see.
Am I live right now?
Yeah, you are live. Way to go, dumbass.
Damn. You're live, bro. We know.
Fuck, why don't I have this video? I think it's going to be later on in this document. Fuck you.
My bad.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Hold on. The 7 electors, are those... So each party puts up 7, right? So
no. It's however many electoral votes I think you have in your state. It's not. I just use 7 as an example. But
so
like
there would be like, let's say Illinois 21 or whatever. It used to be 21. I don't know if it's 18 now or what. But then there would be 8 and 8.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And then they just come together and they're like, "Yep, the vote did go this way," and then they just go to. They just like certify it, like they say yes.
Yeah, that basically the state legislature, I think with the governor being there, will say that like, well, here's who our votes went for, and then
each elector is like an actual person.
Yes, each elector is an actual person. That's why if you click any of the fake elector slates, you'll see that there's like a signature for every single elector.
Okay.
Some of these people, because they wanted to try to pretend to be more legitimate than they actually were. Here, I'll link a video here. I think this might be later on in my document, but you can click this video here. This is an example of, Jesus Christ, this is loud. Let me know when you've opened this and then we can 1.5 times this.
Okay, what is this supposed to be?
So these are, these were the electors chosen by the Trump campaign to try to go to the Capitol and sign their own like electorate slate, even though they didn't win. They didn't win and none of this was real, but
only the electors that win go.
Correct. Yeah, are the ones that are signed off by the governor to transmit their votes to Congress, saying that like, yes, the state of Michigan is voting for all of our electoral votes.
Approves it.
Yeah. Okay, and then we can watch this, put it at 1.5. You're at the beginning. Let me know when you're ready to go.
All set.
Ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
So you're telling us we can't enter? Yeah. Okay, would you say that on the What did he say? He said we can't enter.
What I said was, for the Capitol Commission, for the governor's office, for the Speaker of the House, for the Speaker of the Senate, the Capitol is closed unless you have an office to conduct business today, or if you are taking part in the Electoral College process. Anybody else is not permitted to come in.
They are here.
The electors are already here. They've been checked in.
They're also electors.
All 16 electors have been advised by the governor's staff that we're going to be here to vote in the Electoral College. We've been checked in. They're already here.
But these are the rest of the electors.
I understand. The Capitol is closed.
Captain, the electors are also, the GOP electors are also on the governor's certificate of ascertainment.
I'm not going to get into a political debate. I'm following orders.
Political debate. Okay. It's the official seal document. The certificate of ascertainment has also the GOP electors. They are here. They're trying to do their constitutional duty.
I understand.
And their constitutional duty.
Standing his ground, though.
Today at 2 p.m.
I understand they're not being permitted in. If you have a problem, you can contact the governor's office, the Speaker of the House, the Senate Majority Leader, or...
I saw the governor's press release this morning that said due to COVID. Is that the reason being given?
Okay, so you can close this now. If you click underneath, if you look where I've got each of the 7 states, so like this is Michigan, for instance. So those people that you just saw, these are the this is the elector slate that they sent in, even though these people weren't the actual electors, even though these people weren't given a certificate of ascertainment by the governor, even though these people didn't represent the state legislature or the vote. You can see they sent this in, pretending basically that they were actually, and there's the USPS, the United States Priority Mail, where they mailed it to Congress, because we'll see why later on, but yeah, you can see that. And you can see that.
Did they get convicted of?
A number of people have been charged with crimes in these states. I don't know the right now the status of every single one of those court cases, but I believe at this point, I think every state has had at least one person charged. I think
there have been some charges carried out. I think there was at least one felony I read, but I can't remember totally.
And then my other question is, just curious how much longer you think this will go on. Not that it's like going too long, but about 30, 45 minutes, I got to head out.
Okay, I'll go as fast as I can. If you have to leave in the middle, that's fine. You're good. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, don't just keep going at your pace. I'll just let you know if I got to head out.
Yeah. Okay, I'll read this excerpt from the J6 Select Committee below. On December 14th, using instructions provided by Chesbro, the fake Trump electors gathered and participated in signing ceremonies in all 7 states. In 5 of these states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Wisconsin, the certificates they signed used the language that falsely declared them to be the duly elected and qualified electors from their state. This declaration was false because none of the signatories had been granted that official status by their state government in the form of a certificate of ascertainment. The paperwork signed by the fake Trump electors in 2 other states contained partial caveats. In New Mexico, the document they signed made clear that they were participating on the understanding that it might later be determined that we are the duly elected and qualified electors. In Pennsylvania, the document they signed indicated that they were participating on the understanding that if, as a result of a final non-appealable court order or other proceeding prescribed by law, we are ultimately recognized as being the duly elected and qualified electors. Okay, the next part is... So Chesbro was the guy that originally penned this idea. He admits even in his December 9th memo, quote, "In conclusion, it appears that voting by an alternate slate of electors is unproblematic in Arizona and Wisconsin, slightly problematic in Michigan, requiring access to the Senate chamber, somewhat dicey in Georgia and Pennsylvania in the event that 2 or more electors don't attend, which requires a gubernatorial ratification of the alternates, and very problematic in Nevada, given the role accorded to the Secretary of State." So he's kind of like, he's going through like, this is kind of not legal, but it kind of could be, or maybe it could be. Like, he's basically looking at every state to see like where around the edges they maybe could get away with doing something. But obviously, like, all of this is being done in bad faith, where they're just trying to assert that, like, well, look, electors came from this state, even though they clearly didn't win the election there. On December 13th, Chesbro lays out to Eastman how Pence could declare the ECA. The Electoral Count Act is basically a law that tells Congress how to count the electoral votes. There's like a whole process where they unseal the vote and they count it and they all jerk each other off and everything. On December 13th, Chesbro lays out to Eastman, who's a Trump lawyer, how Pence, Vice President Mike Pence, could declare the ECA unconstitutional and disrupt the expected electoral vote count, proceeding to allow Trump to win the election. He says that Pence should break from the stated procedures of the Electoral Count Act, claiming it to be unconstitutional in violation of the 12th Amendment. Once Pence has recused himself from his role in the Senate, some other Republican leader will take over and act confused about how to read which slate of electors is legitimate. And then, quote, he then opens the 2 envelopes from Arizona and announces that he cannot and will not, at least as of that date, count any electoral votes from Arizona because there are 2 slates of votes. And it's clear that the Arizona courts did not give a full and fair opportunity for review of election irregularities in violation of due process. Basically, what he's saying is that, like, on the day of counting the votes, Pence could basically say, listen, I don't know if I can actually do this. I either don't agree with the law as written because I think that I shouldn't be doing this, or I'm going to act confused and say, I don't know which votes to count, and then he'll put them aside. And like all of these different plans basically allow Pence to kind of circumvent how you would expect the Congress to count the electoral vote. There's kind of a lot of civics bullshit, but go ahead. Chesbro is a random lawyer guy that is basically giving the Trump campaign information on how to toss the election.
So yeah, he's laying out like what is the what is the way to circumvent this?
Procedurally, like how could they do it if they were going to? Yeah.
Chesbro, they're basically saying Pence should take the fall for this, right? They're saying he should recuse himself of his role, which doesn't mean he leaves, but he's saying like, oh, I can't do my role in the Senate. And then some other guy will just be here and like be confused. So they're trying to involve like a lot of people in this, essentially.
Correct.
What his proposition is.
Kind of, yeah.
Which is why they kept saying like, if Mike Pence does the right thing, that's kind of why.
Yeah, this is the right thing. This is the right thing. This is what they're talking about. Yeah.
Destiny, do you think there's any possibility that like Pence, his motivation could have been where he looks at the 2 lists and does everything that you've laid out here with the intention of just buying time to uncover what they genuinely believe is irregularities? Or
that
is this,
could be the
absolutely
case.
malicious?
That would be like a crazy charitable. No, actually, I don't think that's possible. You could read it that way, but the issue is just that as of this point, there hasn't been any credible voter fraud brought forth anywhere. There's no reason up to this point.
How can you read it that way? What would be
the reading? So the reading is always just they just need one more week. They just need 2 more weeks. They just need to push things off to find voter fraud somewhere.
Okay,
That's always
right.
But the issue is that like they were losing all their court cases. They hadn't presented good evidence of any voter fraud. And keep in mind that like not only are they having trouble finding any voter fraud, they're alleging that there's enough voter fraud across 7 different states to swing the election. But for some reason, they haven't presented any good evidence anywhere in the court of public opinion, to any of these media people behind the scenes, to any of Trump's White House officials, to any of the state officials counting, or any of the courts or the trials that they've been like taking part in. They just haven't presented any good evidence anywhere yet. So maybe it's out there, but I think I feel like it's a leap to assume that they were going to find something. But
wait, so basically they just wanted Pence to like filibuster. That was his whole role. He was supposed to like try to make it go as slow as possible. So
potentially, or to have him just basically choose Trump to be president. There was a way that he could do that as well.
Isn't his role in that certification process, wasn't it more like ceremonial?
Yeah,
it's supposed to be. That's how it's understood. That's why, even though people will say, well, this was legal theory, part of this legal theory was Pence saying, actually, the ECA, the Electoral Count Act, this is actually an illegal law, and it's in violation of the Constitution. It was supposed to be for him to make that judgment, which is like the idea that this would, like Pence's legal team went over this, and they said, this is not legal. There's no way you can do this. And even Chesbro's own thing is basically saying, like, we have to say that this law that was passed by Congress isn't actually legal, that the Supreme Court would shoot it down. And there's no evidence to think that they would do that either. There's no reason to think that. Yeah.
Didn't Mike Pence also say later on something along the lines of, like, I couldn't support someone who thinks they're above the Constitution, or he said something to that effect. And I don't know if you've included that in this document, but
maybe
I also felt like that was...
That's why he's not on the ticket right now.
Sure. I think that might come up later.
Sorry if I'm skipping.
No, yeah, you're good.
The plot.
When you say there's no reason to think that, do you mean in relation to Supreme Court, do you mean there's no reason to think that they wouldn't shoot down this crazy idea?
No serious legal person thought that this was possible. This was a legal theory like me killing you and then saying that like, well, I think the First Amendment protects my right to speak, and the way that I killed you, was by stabbing you in the ear, and I think that's kind of like speaking something violent into your ear. Like it would be like that. Like that is a legal theory, but it wouldn't.
That's like the whole like Ben Shapiro defense for why it's not a big deal.
Maybe, yeah, sure, yeah. There's also Chesbro in the media. He had his secret Twitter account got leaked, and there's funny tweets of him where he's like tweeting shit about how like if you click the let me see, hold on. If you click that, Chesbro's secret Twitter account was leaked, in which he'd made multiple tweets detailing how Trump could win the election via Pence overturning the vote while the electoral votes were being counted. I think that middle one that says leaked. No, wait. Multiple tweets, that one. Like, this is Chesbro's alt on Twitter saying, you don't get the big picture. Trump doesn't have to get courts to declare him the winner of the vote. He just needs to convince the Republican legislatures that the election was systematically rigged, but it's impossible to run it again, so they should appoint electors instead. He will push it all the way to early January, and if necessary, rely on Pence to count only electoral votes sent in by the Republican legislatures, or count no disputed electoral votes and throw the election to the House, which would elect Trump 80%, 80-20 in Trump's favor. So this is like the plan. Okay, everybody knows this in the Trump campaign.
Solid plan.
Sure, yeah.
Solid.
The next section here is Trump's direct involvement. On December 6th, Mark Meadows is the chief of staff of Donald Trump at the White House. Chief of staff means that he's basically the guy that Trump would go to for any of his staff to do anything. He's like your head, I don't want to say like head bitch or head assistant, but he's like directing everybody beneath you. So on December 6th, Meadows forwarded the November 18th memo from Chesbro to Trump campaign senior advisor Jason Miller. Meadows and Miller began to work to gather the 79 needed Republican electors on the November ballot in the 7 states they plan to have transmit false electoral votes to Congress. Trump campaign associate general counsel Joshua Finlay told the January 6th Select Committee, quote, it was my understanding that the president made this decision, and quote, to pursue the electorate scheme by December 7th or 8th. Finlay claimed that the campaign's general counsel, Matthew Morgan, directed the campaign lawyers to, quote, look into electors in these potential litigation states, end quote. In deposition testimony provided to the J6 committee, RNC chairwoman Ronna Romney McDaniel said that on or around December 12th, Trump, along with Eastman, called her to stress the importance of gathering alternate slates of electors. We don't have to read her testimony, but but that's all linked there too. But Trump was like personally involved in all of this. Testimony from Special Assistant to the President, Cassidy Hutchinson, also confirms that Trump knew of the legal dubiousness of the electoral plot, especially after most of the lawsuits had failed by mid-December and his legal staff on his campaign began to quit and distance themselves from the campaign. Quote, committee staff, to be clear, did you hear the White House counsel's office say that the plan to have alternate electors meet and cast votes for Donald Trump in states that he had lost was not legally sound? And quote, Hutchinson, yes, sir. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey. Oh, this was, so when the Arizona governor was doing the certificate of ascertainment, you can click this if you want. It's just like a quick video that we can watch this. It's like 20 seconds or whatever. Let me know once you click this, 43 seconds.
Clicked it.
Got it.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go.
Timing of a cell phone ring played out Monday as if it was a TV political drama. Governor Ducey's cell phone has a special Hail to the Chief ringtone when the White House calls him. And it just so happened, as the governor was preparing to sign certification documents of the election that would declare Joe Biden the winner, listen closely, he gets a phone call. The faint sound of Hail to the Chief can be heard. Ducey didn't take the call, and with his signature, affirmed he's rejecting Trump's ever more aggressive attempts to stall certification of elections in swing states. Later in the day...
Again, and the video there, yeah, just Trump is like literally making phone calls to people to try to get them to like not sign off on their electoral votes and shit.
That does seem like it plays out like it's television for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty goofy. We don't have to do this next session. Many doubted the alternate electors' legitimacy. Like a lot of the electors themselves,
What does that mean?
basically a lot of the electors themselves weren't sure if it was legal or not. I think I've got a video later on where a lot of them felt like they'd been misled by the campaign because the campaign was telling some of them that it's all on the up and up. And they were like, well, we thought that this was fine. We didn't know because like people like Chesbro or, people in Trump's campaign were just lying to us. It's basically them complaining about that. These are the electors. So these are the people that actually signed those false certificates. You've got beneath this, there's a section called the coup memos from Eastman. They're referred to as the coup memos. Obviously, he didn't call them that. But if you click on the one from December 23rd and you click on the one from January 3rd, you can literally read out like none of this is like conspiratorial or like, well, maybe they said this. Like all of this is like in emails like sent to each other. So for instance, if you look at the the first memo, for instance, the one on December 23rd, if you go to page 2, like he has here, like, here's the scenario that we propose. 1, VP Pence presiding over the joint session begins to open and counts the ballots, starting with Alabama, without conceding that the procedure specified by the Electoral Count Act, the ECA, of going through the states alphabetically is required. When he gets to Arizona, he announces that he has multiple slates of electors, and so he's going to defer the decision on that until further finishing the other states. This would be the first break with the procedures set out in the Act. At the end, he announces that because of the ongoing disputes in the 7 states, there are no electors that can be deemed validly appointed in those states. That means that the total number of electors appointed, the language of the 12th Amendment, is 454. This reading of the 12th Amendment has also been advanced by Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe here. And then he tries to quote some other wacky law dude who's like, oh, I think that we would know what would happen if there weren't enough electors, basically. There are at this point 232 votes for Trump, 222 votes for Biden. Pence then gavels President Trump as reelected. The fourth part here is howls, of course, from the Democrats, who now claim, contrary to Tribe's prior position, Tribe being the law professor, that 270 is required. So Pence says, fine, pursuant to the 12th Amendment, no candidate has achieved the necessary majority. That sends the matter to the House, where the votes shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. Republicans currently control 26 of the state delegations. The bare majority needed to win that vote. President Trump is reelected there as well. All of this is like laid out.
More Republican states.
Yeah, exactly.
California would then be 1 vote. They
have like
fucking written out an email. This is nuts, dude. What the fuck?
They have like plan B, C, D, E. They have all the plans lined up.
I have a question. How exactly did what was the proposal process or communication process like for the Trump campaign to get these false electorates in each state to do what they wanted? Like, what was that process like?
That kind of was in the section I skipped. Many doubted the alternate electors' legitimacy. Well, and it was in the one that I read a little bit before. Basically, what the Trump campaign started to do is they started to make calls in these states to try to find people who would volunteer to be like the electors. So they're looking for, I think, like people that had worked in government or people that worked ostensibly like with the Republican parties in these states to basically show up and sign and say, like, I'm an elector from the Republican state legislature. I attest to voting for Donald Trump or whatever. It was basically just the campaign reaching out to and trying to find a bunch of people. Yeah.
Okay. How many people were involved in this then? I mean, it seems like it's a pretty wide-reaching.
If you go under Donald Trump's direct involvement, it says that Trump campaign senior advisor Jason Miller, Meadows and Miller began to work together the 79 needed Republican electors on the November ballot in the 7 states they plan to have transmit false elector votes to Congress. So it was 79 different electors that they had contacted to get together in all of these states to do everything. Yeah.
So 79 electors, and then at the top you have like Trump, Jason Miller, Eastman. That's basically the main guys.
Yeah, and everybody basically involved in like the Trump. So as the president of the United States, you have a lot of resources available to you. You've got like the Office of Legal Counsel, your Department of Justice. These are kind of like all your like official people. But then Trump had his own people on the side that he was using to kind of farm all the crazy conspiracy stuff. So that would be people, anytime you hear the name Giuliani, Eastman, and Powell, and Chesbro, these are like the wacky, crazy side people. They're not part of the White House. They're not part of the government. These are just like Donald Trump's like crazy dudes that he has that are basically like doing his kind of like bidding for him, if that makes any sense.
Jason Miller was a member of, he was like chief of staff or something, right?
Mark Meadows was his chief of staff, yes. But he's like pretty clearly operating as like kind of just Trump's like personal bitch here. He's not like, it doesn't seem like he's not performing like official White House duties, basically.
I know this name Jason Miller. Who the fuck was this guy?
So you're just living with 2 women? Are we going to acknowledge that?
They're just, like, I don't know. They're just,
it's 9 p.m. and you just got 2
They wander around in the background. I don't know what they're doing back there. Okay. Okay. So,
yeah,
hold on.
men are talking.
Yeah.
They escaped.
Do not
Tom's
go to his
basement.
apartment. Do not go to his apartment.
Okay. Scrolling down. Okay, we're blazing through this. Okay. Okay. Past the coup memos. Oh yeah, Eastman. I think it might be disbarred. His license has already been suspended. I think he's on his way to disbarment. Pressuring Mike Pence on January 2nd. Pence went over the procedures of the certification of the election as set out in the Electoral Count Act with his counsel, Greg Jacob, Chief of Staff Mark Short, and the Trump campaign's General Counsel, Matt Morgan. Mark gave a statement to CNN intending to clarify that the vice president does not have the power to unilaterally change the election outcome, attempting to clarify as concisely as possible to the public as to the role of the vice president on January 6th, and that only lawful objections to the election should be entertained. On that same day, on Steve Bannon's show, Bannon's War Room, they went live with an episode featuring Rudy Giuliani, Trump campaign strategic advisor Boris Epshteyn, and John Eastman. So I won't make you watch this, but like you can click at whatever point. But like this is just like basically it's a Steve Bannon show. Remember, that's the Breitbart guy. Worked with the Trump campaign before. He's been pardoned by Trump. So Giuliani, Eastman are on the show, and they repeated many of the same false claims, both about voter fraud existing across multiple states. And Eastman continued to falsely assert that Pence has the authority to contravene the Electoral Count Act and subvert the expected process on January 6th to certify the election. He also claims that Congress can make a decision on their own. Can make a decision on their own about which slates of electors to accept, hoping that the states will accept all the Republican slates due to the false claims that they were continuing to push concerning voter fraud. Eastman said that the outcome of the election comes down to the courage and spine of Mike Pence. In his January 3rd memo, where Eastman goes over several ways for Trump to remain president, he makes it clear that the only way Trump can possibly steal the election is if Pence acts in a way contrary to the ECA. So Pence has to break the law of the Electoral Count Act in order to make this plot work.
No, he has to do the right thing.
Yeah, true. On January 4th, Trump and Eastman hold a meeting with Pence to pressure him to throw out the election. Go ahead. Yep.
Where are they very clear about like when you have this written out here, Eastman goes over several ways for Trump to remain president.
Mm-hmm.
It makes clear that the only way Trump can possibly steal the election is if Pence acts in ways contrary to the ECA. That's written in the memo. You had open earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one we brought up because they were saying he needs to basically say fuck the ECA.
Points. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want, here, trying not to bore you too much with the legalese stuff, but so open this thing and you can see the January 6th memo.
Yeah.
So scroll down here and on the PDF, go to page 4.
Okay.
And you see this thing called Wargaming the Alternative. Or no, wait. I'm sorry, hold on. Actually, scroll up. Hold on, let me reread this. Go to part 2, basically. Okay, it's like at the bottom of page 2, top of page 3, kind of part 2.
Okay. Yep.
So it's kind of confusing the way that they're saying this, but 2 is the constitutional and statutory process for opening and counting of electoral votes. A, The 12th Amendment provides that the President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. 1. This is very solid legal authority and historical precedent for the view that the President of the Senate does the counting, including the resolution of disputed electoral votes. And all the members of Congress can do is watch. Now, it's weird, but okay. Civics, okay? We have 3 branches of government, okay? We've got the executive, which is the president. You've got the legislative, which is Congress. And then you've got the Supreme Court, which is the Supreme Court, right? The courts, right? There's a thing that powers all 3 of these branches called the Constitution, okay? Sometimes people say like constitutional law or the law of the Constitution. And while it's kind of true, the constitutional law, Constitution, does not sit on the same level as the laws passed by Congress. It powers the Congress, okay? The Constitution is always the supreme law of the land. So whenever he's referencing in here things like the 12th Amendment, what he's saying, and it sounds like, oh, the 12th Amendment, he's saying, what he's saying is, I think that this law passed by Congress isn't allowed. I think that if it got challenged in the Supreme Court, they would say that this law is unconstitutional because of the 12th Amendment.
The amendment is the Constitution.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
But when he's alluding to the 12th Amendment here, he's trying to say that I don't think the Electoral Count Act, I don't think that's a legal law. I think that the 12th Amendment would overrule that. But that's just his opinion. The Supreme Court hasn't ruled on that. He's just saying it, right? And then that's why you
believe in this constitutional amendment.
Well, not the constitutional amendment. He's saying he doesn't believe in this law passed by Congress, basically. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
that's why you see here, and like in B in the next section, it says the Electoral Count Act of 1887, which is likely unconstitutional, provides, and then that's what he goes through here. But basically that
1887.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we've used this for a long time. Yeah. And then if you go down to part 3, where it says wargaming the alternatives, here is where he goes through like, well, this is what happens if like Pence doesn't play ball with us, basically, right? Hold on.
And this was sent out via email, right?
Yes. These memos are all like published by them. They don't deny any of that. This is all like open stuff. Yeah. So wargaming the alternatives. VP Pence opens the ballots, counts those certified by the state executives, and does not receive any objections, meeting the requirements of the Electoral Count Act. Then that would mean that Biden wins. B, Vice President Pence opens the ballots. He receives objections to the 7 states with multiple ballots. The 2 bodies adjourn to their separate chambers and decide which slate of electors to count. Subsection 1. The House votes to count the Biden slate. The Senate votes to count the Biden slate as well, depending on Georgia election. Only 1 to 3 Republicans voting the Democrats would yield the result. Then Biden would win. Or subsection 2. The House votes to count the Biden slate. The Senate votes to count the Trump slate under the Electoral Count Act. Because the 2 houses do not agree, the slate certified by the executive prevails. Biden wins, so that's following the law, the Electoral Count Act. And then subsection 3, the House votes to count the Biden slate. There's a filibuster in the Senate, contrary to the time limits of the Electoral Count Act. The standoff until the filibuster ends by a cloture vote, which would only take 10 to 12 Republican senators to accomplish. After the cloture vote, either section 1 or 2 above, then Biden wins, okay? And then for section C, I won't read through all of these, but just so the VP Pence opens the ballots. He determines on his own, which is valid, asserting that the authority to make that determination under the 12th Amendment and the Adams and Jefferson proceedings is his alone. Everything in the Electoral Count Act to the contrary is therefore unconstitutional. So he has to break that law. And then he goes through like how that could turn out here. And obviously in all 3 cases here, Trump wins. Subsection 1, state legislature, blah, 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 Trump wins. Subsection 2, Trump wins. Subsection 3, Trump wins. So basically, yeah. So they're saying that like basically in order to, we want Pence to break this law here because it'll help Trump. It'll be the way that Trump is guaranteed to win the outcome of this, right?
Yeah, like any way it goes through officially, basically what they're saying in a reality where they act how they've acted for however long,
150 years. Yeah.
Biden wins. But if Trump, or sorry, not if Trump, if Pence does this one thing, Trump wins, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, and C is specifically saying like this is illegal.
Yeah. Well, anything that references the 12th Amendment is illegal. They're just saying that what they're really saying is that if the Supreme Court were to look at this, the Supreme Court would agree with us and say that that law is illegal, actually. So even though we're breaking that law, we think that law is unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court would agree with us, is what he's saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Whew. Okay. Let's see. On the night of, where were we? There was the Bannon's War Room thing. Pence is the authority to contravene.
I wanted to know, you said on January 4th, Trump and Eastman hold a meeting with Pence.
Yes.
To pressure him to throw out the election. I think that's where we were. How do we know that meeting happened?
Multiple people give testimony to it. there's just a lot of, the thing is, so one of the things I say on stream all the time is that you can't hide huge conspiracies. The idea that hundreds or thousands of people are involved, it's not feasible. This is that kind of conspiracy. You just can't hide it. Like, remember, every time Pence is talking to somebody, like he's talking to his legal counsel afterwards.
Where's that allegation coming from?
For which thing?
The thing is, like, I agree with what you're saying on like a basic level, and I think you're probably right. I just think that if you're going to present this, you're going to need to have like these 12 people all said this meeting happened.
On January 4th, Trump began to ramp up public. Oh no! Where does it say he had a
on
meeting
January
with,
4th, Trump and Eastman hold a meeting with Pence to pressure him to throw out the election.
Who are the people saying he had a meeting?
Okay, I'll add that. I'll add a link to that in there. Testimony.
Do you ever discuss what Trump's response to all this was?
Trump's response was to go to the Supreme Court and say he needs absolute immunity from criminal actions unless he's been impeached for it first. That's been Trump's response to all of this.
We'll get to the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, where are we at during the meeting?
Are you showing us all this stuff, basically trying to find the best way to present your arguments to kind of a more like layman audience like us, like guys who aren't super into politics typically? Is that kind of
basically, because there's like, well, you're not retarded, but there's a lot here, and there's like a lot of there's like, this could be like 5 times longer, right? The J6 committee report, just on their report on everything that happened, is like 800 pages long. So I've cut out a ton, and I'm trying to be like, and even from this, if I were to make like a 10 or 20 minute video on this or 30-minute video, I have to cut out even a lot of this. So I'm just trying to see what's the most compelling, or what's like, does it like, who cares about this or whatever, right? Gotcha. Okay. On the night of January 4th, Trump began to ramp up the public pressure against Pence, calling for him to come through for us in a Georgia rally. So there's a breakout here. Donald Trump in a January 4th rally in 2021. Quote, I think a lot of you despise them. As you know, there's nothing the radical Democrats will not do to get power that they so desperately crave, even the outright stealing of elections like they're trying to do with us. We're not going to let it happen over the pass. And I hope Mike Pence comes through for us. I have to tell you, I hope that our great vice president comes through for us. He's a great guy. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much. No, Mike is a great guy. He's a wonderful man and a smart man and a man that I like a lot, but he's going to have a lot to say about it. One thing with him, you're going to get straight shots. He's going to call it straight. And you can click that link if you want later. You can watch it. It's just Trump speaking at a rally. On January 5th, another meeting was between Eastman and Greg Jacob and Mark Short. Jacob recorded Eastman's request that the vice president needed to unilaterally reject the electors. Trump made multiple tweets that morning, one claiming that 2 senators would join in his plot in the Senate to stop the steal, another claiming that the vice president has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors, applying more pressure to Pence. At Trump's request, him and Pence had another meeting that same day. Although the J6 committee was unable to inquire about the exact details of the meeting, Mark Short seems to suggest that it was concerning Trump requesting Pence once again toss the votes during the certification. That night, in response to a New York Times article leaking the earlier conversation, Donald Trump put out a statement containing multiple lies, the principal one being that him and Pence were in total agreement about what Pence could do on January 6th. I think this is a tweet that includes a statement by Donald Trump. Mike Pence has an interview that he gave on Fox News, kind of talking about all this stuff going on. He says, I had no right to overturn the election. And despite the fact that President Trump is continuing to insist that over the last 2.5 years, I want people to know that I stood strong on the Constitution that day by God's grace, and I always will. All they asked you to do was to just take a pause that day. I say that's completely false, and it's contrary to American history, to our Constitution, to the laws of this country. I never considered it, Martha. Look, the first time when I heard the speculation that I, as the vice president, had the authority to overturn the election by returning or rejecting votes, I frankly dismissed it out of hand. Look, the founder, blah, 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 blah. I was clear to Trump.
This is all a clip of him on Fox News saying?
Yeah, you can click the Fox News link and you can just hear him. He's just saying all of this. It's an open interview. Yeah. Okay. But let's be clear on the point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me, to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued. So, Martha, people can read the indictment, and frankly, I said before, I had hoped that it had not come to this point. I don't know if the government can meet the standard, the burden of proof, beyond reasonable doubt for criminal charges, but the American people deserve to know that President Trump and his advisors didn't just ask me to pause. They asked me to reject votes, return votes, essentially to overturn the election, to keep faith with the oath that I made to the American people and the Almighty God. I rejected that out of hand, and I did my duty that day. That's Pence in an interview in 2023, August 2nd. Yeah, okay. That same night,
The electric fence.
yeah, I think this is on January 5th. That same night, Steve Bannon went live with another episode of The War Room, applying even greater pressure to Pence while claiming, quote, all hell is going to break loose tomorrow. Just understand this, all hell is going to break loose tomorrow. It's going to be quick. It's the fog of war, end quote. Bannon also discussed putting Senator Grassley's number on the screen and suggested they encourage users at thedonald.win to contact the senator. Pence ultimately carried out his constitutional duty as vice president and certified the vote for Biden on January 6th. Okay.